On Australia's business channel, this is Media Week.
Hello and welcome to Media Week. I'm Brooke Cordy. Ahead, News Corp's first earnings call since the company's split. Seven West Media's CEO speaks about the ad market and more changes to breakfast radio. But first, we've talked often on this show about the way print publishers are altering their business models in order to navigate their way through the challenges posed by digital media. Most of the talk is really centred around how newspapers, are dealing with the migration of readers to digital options or computers and mobile devices. Well, today, we'll talk magazines with Matt Stanton. He's the Chief Executive of Australia's biggest magazine publisher, the German-owned Bauer Media Australia. And of course, we've also got with us in studio again our co-host James Manning, editor and publisher of Media Week. So welcome to you both to Media Week.
Thank you.
And particularly to you, Matt Stanton. Just to set the scene for us, in Australia, do you think that the challenges that the magazine publishers are facing are similar to or different to what you're seeing in the rest of the world?
Yeah, pretty similar. I mean, we're part of a global group now, and they are pretty similar, although they seem to have been quite harder here quicker than they've gone elsewhere in the world. So we're seeing bigger declines, for example, in magazine advertising in Australia versus where we've seen in Germany and the UK.
Now, one of the things you're doing to try and combat that, you've got this new tool for advertisers called MAP.
Yep.
Just give us a quick heads up on that. It gives them information and access to data they previously haven't had before.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is a world first. I mean, it's a very innovative tool, and basically it does, as you say, give access to data for the agencies to be able to clearly monitor the performance of magazines in the marketing mix. So very much against other mediums out there, this will give pretty much real-time data for the agencies to model how accurate and what the performance is of magazines.
So what's the gap it's filling? Is it just the time lag, or is it other stuff that they get from this new tool?
I think it's two things broadly. Time is probably the biggest thing. So at the moment we release our readership and circulation data on either 3 months or 6 months data, and they're very much at that point in time, an aggregated number of all the 3 months or 6 months data we get. This, though, gives you on a weekly data basis. So if you have a magazine that goes on sale on a Monday, for example, the following Monday we will give the results of the readership to the agencies so they can model to show the performance of the magazine advertising in the marketing mix.
Why is that such a good thing? I know in business we often talk about the short-termism of shareholders, and the shorter the timeframes get, the more intently focused on short timeframes the audiences or the advertisers or the shareholders get. So that's obviously, I mean, that's kind of a two-way street as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but I think, we've been asked by the agencies, really, and we've responded here to make it easier to do business with ourselves. So very much the data we had before was, 3 or 6 months. It's very robust data, it's accurate data. What they need, though, really is some data to do the ROI modelling about what returns they're getting for the marketeers in their advertising very quickly. So, we're all under more pressure in industry to show our margins and show how performance is going, and marketeers are no different. So having this allows us to give a very quick return on their investment in our advertising.
Now, just how does this work? Do advertisers go in and look at stuff, or do you send it to them? And is it open to any advertisers or only people already advertising in the magazine?
No, what we do is we give it to the agencies, and it's really a tool that we give to the agencies so they can measure the performance of the magazine.
Stuff they've already booked?
Already booked, yeah. It's
Okay.
not for pre, and this is it's not for planning purposes. The planning purposes should be done through the usual readership and circulation numbers we already give. This is very much for modelling and valuation point of view, post-analysis.
And you're obviously expecting there's some financial benefit for bringing this in and you're having this tool available.
Sure. No, we hope so. I mean, I think this really gives us gives the answers back to some of the agents around making sure we're easy to do business with, and they have the return on investment numbers that they can show to their clients around it. I mean, there's been a lot of tests around the world on this. I mean, the UK Magazine Association have done some tests to show that when you properly do this and give the information, it shows the accumulation that a magazine has and predicts it properly. There's a 19% uplift in the return on investment from magazines versus what they're getting accounted for at the moment.
The general reader could be under the impression that the magazine market's pretty crook here.
Yeah.
You only ever really generally read bad news, or you had a bit of good news about Bell this week increasing their frequency next year, but headlines about magazines closing. One former boss of ACP said, look, Bauer never closes magazines, but in Australia they seem to have made an exception. Are we doing it really a lot tougher here than elsewhere?
Look, I think it's tough elsewhere, but it is very tough.
And you've worked for Bauer before,
I
so
have.
you can make that comparison.
Correct. I've worked in the UK, and it's very competitive in the UK as well, and it's very tough. We've had a tough year here from a trading point of view, especially on the advertising side. The circulations have been a bit more robust. There has been a lot of headlines recently about closures and where the magazine industry is, but what they don't really report is enough is what the launches are doing. So yes, we've closed a number of titles this year. We've sold some titles in our stable as well. What we have done is launch 4 or 5 titles as well into the marketplace. And also, I think people forget though, it's more than just a printed medium anymore. We've launched 16 websites this year, so it's a massive investment from our company into the digital side of the business. These are big investments, and for the editors these days, this is not just about doing a printed product. This is about doing a magazine, it's doing about a tablet, it's doing about a mobile app, it's about doing the website as well. So this is a multimedia play from the magazine businesses, and that is tough, you know, because you have to work the whole workflows out. How does it work? How does your resources working across all these different areas?
We just flashed up a picture of the Elle magazine with the beautiful Natalie Portman on the cover. I think it's only the second issue.
That's right, yeah.
Any update on how you think it's going?
Yeah, well, look, it's going very well. It's going to plan, and this again, you see, this shows what we do when we launch the market. We launched the website before we launched the actual magazine this time round. So, from a point of view of the website's going way ahead of plan.
So we shouldn't just focus on what you're doing in print.
Correct.
We should look at the overall brand.
Now, no doubt, the print underpins the whole brand, okay, and that's where our strength is, and that's where the economic model is best at the moment. But very much, we launched the website. The app's going very well. The tablet edition's going very well. The copy sales are very solid. The subscriptions are going very quickly. It's very early days at the moment. The advertising is very strong. So far so good. Touch wood on these things.
Is it? I mean, obviously, we've just said some of the headlines are really all about bad news for magazines. You can point to digital, but are you able to convince people, or is it still early days with digital to be able to convince that transition's kind of happening properly?
Yeah, I mean, people talk about transition, but I think people have got this wrong, okay? Magazines aren't up against digital, okay? People read magazines, they also look on websites, they also have apps, etc. They're not magazine people per se, they're not TV people per se, they're not radio people per se. You know, they enjoy the different mediums that are out there. So for us, I think you do the magazine, very clearly for us, we'll go down the route of the magazine's one medium, and there will be this different stories in there, and the stories behind the stories, and the longer reads, etc., for the enjoyment, the relaxation. We will also do the digital side of the business as well, which will be shorter snacking of news, etc., that goes through, and entertainment. So it's a different read on the digital side. As people are coming into work, etc., they're looking on their phones. That's very different what they'll be looking at versus what they're reading, or even what they're doing on their websites.
Commentary, and Brooke and I spoke about this last week, but the Dolly Cleo combo of the editorial forces. A lot of people writing about those two magazines, probably for the first time since I was editing one of them. I suggested that maybe it was a way of keeping those magazines viable. You know, you've got to do things like that, or you're looking at maybe closures.
Look,
is that the real world out there?
It's tough out there, but Dolly and Cleo very much absolutely works from a point of view of combining the resources behind them. And very much, don't forget, this is not just, again, the print, this is across the digital side of the business as well. And when you look at digital, it's very different to the print side. So the resources that we need there are very much working across print and digital. Combining the resources is economic for us, but it also improves the quality of the magazine. So from our point of view, we'll have the best editors working on the best writers, etc., on the stories that are needed on both magazines. Both magazines come out differently. They're monthly magazines. One of them comes out 2 weeks before the other one. So there's very much a clear cycle that we can have where we can have one team doing 2 magazines. Very common across the rest of the world, these sort of things as well. So there's some of the practices we're bringing into our business down in Australia.
It does go to some of the talk around that's been around the changing culture that obviously ACP's had to deal with Bauer coming in. You know, less parties, less gifts being thrown around, and more merging of staff and closures and that kind of thing. Has that been a big part of it?
Look, I don't think this is actually Bauer acquiring us. This is something we as a management team have been doing for some time. We decided to change the culture and move like this.
Otherwise,
exactly. This was happening, and this is a sort of journey. When you go through culture change, this takes some time, you know, and very much so. Yes, there are changes, and the key thing for us is the consumers and the product and getting the best product out there. So yes, some of the excesses that might have been there before, we are stopping some of those. Some of the practices we had before, that's business. We have to do it, and some of the resources we're working harder. We're working some of the content harder. The content is going across platforms, it's going across products as well. That's just the realities of where we are in business, I suppose.
Matt Stanton, thank you very much. Great to have you on the program. CEO of Bauer Media Australia. Thank you.
Thank you.
And stick with us here on Media Week, because coming up we'll bring you up-to-date information and commentary on the ad market outlook. We've heard it from some of the major media players this week, and we'll have that after the break.